Hey, what's up guys? So we're back for part 3 now of this Dashcam video series. We're gonna be talking about maybe just some Q&As. I've got a number of questions for Ben from Safe Drive Solutions here. He knows quite a bit about dash cams. I've been learning from him, and just kind of as we've been chit-chatting during my install, you can check out part 1 of the video to see more about the install here in this EV9. I've kind of been taking some notes of cool things that we've been talking about and things that I wanted to share. So to start things off, I wanted to talk about using your internal 12-volt battery that your car has with versus using a dedicated dashcam battery pack. Yeah. Kind of give me your pros and cons on both, and when you do one method versus another.
A lot of times people see 24-hour parking mode online. They get excited. Hey, I'm gonna buy that dash camera. I can buy it for $199 and I can have it record 24 hours a day. They buy it, they get it home, they contact someone like us or whoever to install the dash camera, right? And then what ends up happening is we have to explain to them that their vehicle battery just isn't going to support recording 24 hours a day, right? It just isn't meant to be doing that, right? To be cycling that much. And that's kind of a big problem. And I mean, this is why I think you've gone towards Viofo, Blackview, Thinkware. That's why you review a lot of those dash cameras, I think, on your channel probably too. They have a lot of these safety features involved that a lot of the other dash cam brands don't have, right? Like for me, I know everyone asks me, why are we supporting certain brands? And it's because they have timers on them, right? You can put a timer on it, you can limit how long it is. So it has minimal wear and tear on your vehicle car battery. But I always tell people, if you wanted to record longer, if you wanted to record 8 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours, that's why you get a battery pack, in my opinion, right? Because you don't want to be changing out your battery. And the Mini Cooper, BMW, certain vehicles like that, if your accessory battery goes from your dash camera because you get one of these dash cameras that don't have the proper protection or timers to limit the wear and tear on your battery, it's $800-900 for one of those batteries. It's very expensive. Obviously that's Canadian I'm talking.
Okay. Yeah.
Canuck.
Yeah, a little better here in the States, pricing wise. What about, I know there's a number of different batteries. You've been testing a bunch, you've got some in your car as well. Which battery packs do you sell? Which ones do you like?
I think most of the battery packs that are being offered on the market are good. I do believe the Blackview, the Black Box My Car Power Cell 8, the Thinkware iVolt Extra, the iRoad Power Pack Pro. I feel they're all good battery packs. But the ones that we support are basically the iRoad Power Pack and the Thinkware iVolt Extra. And the main reason why we decided on those is because there's a lot of newer vehicles that don't have high current ignitions. And even like I was telling you, like the BMWs, some of these higher end vehicles, they don't even have ignition sources, right? They end up having ignition sense.
What's the difference?
Well, the ignition sense, you can't put a load on.
So it's kind of like a trigger. It tells you when the car is going on and off.
Yeah.
You can't pull power?
That's correct. So for instance, if you're hardwiring a Viofo dash camera, the yellow wire is the ignition wire. But the yellow wire can be hooked up directly to an ignition on a BMW. But all it's doing is it's monitoring your ignition. It's not actually drawing any current on that line. So that's why we went with those battery pack options, because they just monitor the ignition line, and we can hook up to a high current 12-volt power, constant power, right? So we decided on that just because we felt it was more safe, it was easier. And to kind of give you an example, so for instance, my business partner actually was doing an install recently in Toronto, and the customer didn't actually have the hardwire cable. So should I keep going or no?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can talk into that one.
Yeah.
And we'll let this one
So the customer actually didn't have the hardwire cable. And what ended up happening is he goes, well, I'll try and I'll see if it works. And he hooked up directly to the ignition sense and ground. And yeah, it won't power up the dash camera. So if you're trying to do that with a battery pack or with a dash camera that doesn't actually have a parking mode cable where you can hook it up to a high current 12 volt and ground, you can't actually install these and it's off too.
Wow. All my cameras are overheating. Speaking of which, I know you mentioned earlier about the ignition power sources. There's some spots in the fuse box. I know you've mentioned issues with trying to pull power from the fuse box. Not all the wires behind them can actually support the higher power draw, around 10-ish amps or so, to even charge a battery pack in the first place.
Yeah, so a lot of people aren't thinking about the wire that comes out of the back of the fuse box. They're always worried about the thickness of the wire coming out of the battery pack, but they're not worried about the back side of the fuse box. So a lot of times people see a 10 amp fuse they'll take it out because it tests as ignition. And then they put like a 20 or 15 amp fuse for the battery pack in, and then put the 10 amp in. So now you're on a 10 amp circuit, you're drawing 10 amps rated for the vehicle for that circuit, and then putting another 10 amps from the battery on that same circuit. Well, that wire is pretty small, and we're off. So a lot of times that wire is just too small. And if it's too small, think about what load you're putting on the back side of your fuse box. Everybody's worried about how to hook up going into the fuse box, but not worried about the back side of your factory wiring. And if you end up building up resistance over time, it's not something you're going to see like today, but like think about a year down the road, 2 years down the road, what's going to end up happening with the connection on the back side of your fuse box, right? Now, if you're just doing it with a dash camera is usually, I mean, the highest ones that I think we're testing right now is like 0.7 of an amp. It is not a big concern at all. But with a battery pack, you're drawing a lot of current. It's totally different.
So if you do want to do like just a dash cam to your fuse box to your car battery, I know there's debate on like what voltage cutoff threshold should I do? 11.8 volts, 12, 12.2. Which ones do you typically recommend?
So like on an older vehicle, right? Like say, I don't know, let's give it an example, 2014 or older, we'll probably do 12 volts and higher. A lot of the newer vehicles, like if it's hybrid, EV, etc., we like doing like 12.2 volts or higher, right? We just feel that seems to be safe. And as long as we set it on that 3-hour threshold time limit, we find that that typically is safe. We don't have customers calling us all the time. And it's funny, people are like, where did you come up with this magical 3 hours? And it's actually because of iRoad's dash cams. This is completely funny. I installed tons of the iRoad X11s, and I had customers calling me, telling me that it was not lasting for a certain amount of time early on. And this is, I'm talking about 3 years ago. And I was like, what do you mean it's not lasting that long? Well, I get into my vehicle and it would tell you that your dash camera shut off due to low battery protection. So I started like working together with my clients and telling them, hey, if you set it for 3 hours, do you get that thing anymore? And I could follow up with them, and it's like 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months later, they're fine on the 3 hours. And so they started getting a consistent 3 hours of parking mode. So now you go out, you eat at a restaurant, you go meet someone for coffee, you go out shopping quickly, you go to a movie. Typically you're protected for that 3 hours on a consistent basis. So that's kind of why I came up with that 3 hours, right? Well, if you start putting on like 12 or 24 hours, you might get it the oddball day depending on your driving, but it's not consistent. And if you beat your battery up so low, what ends up happening is, you know, I noticed early on with the company, I trusted the manufacturer specifications, 24-hour parking mode, and I would set them up like that. And now I assumed that just trust the manufacturer blindly. And what would end up happening is I'd get the calls like, hey, it shut off 5 minutes after I parked. And that's because your battery's so depleted and low now after putting it on 24-hour parking mode for so long. And like, let's say you get home on Friday and you let it sit the whole weekend, for instance, right? And some thinkwares come default 48-hour mode. You're just beating up your battery and your vehicle's just sitting there. So
on that note, I know a lot of the dash cams have the option for like lower voltage settings. And if you set it to like 11.8 volts or something, that might for some cars be too low to the point where it could maybe cause too many issues for the battery, more issues.
That's correct.
I saw you did a cool trick with the hardwire cable and tape. Can you tell me about that you did for the install here?
So with the OFO hardwire cable, it actually has a selector switch, which is 11.8, 12, 12.2, or 12.4 volts. And what I like to do is when we install it, is I like putting black electrical tape around it after we've set the selected voltage. That way we know it's not being tampered with after we left. Also, a lot of times because you have to put it in the dash, and it's not really easy to mount. So imagine you actually slide it in the dash and drop it down to 11.8 volts. And then that customer actually calls you like a week later and goes, hey, my battery died, right? It's not really a good feeling, right? So I noticed that like it happened to me once and I was like, okay, how do I eliminate this challenge?
Yeah, a cool little safeguard, just little tips and tricks I've seen.
Yeah.
And then the last thing that I wanted to ask you, I know some people have like OBD II connectors for their dash cams. You can plug it in to pull power that way.
Yep.
I've seen some people online say that's not a good idea. OBD II, it's only meant for diagnostics, not for pulling power. It can throw codes, it can cause issues on the car.
Yep.
Is that true? What are the issues? What are your thoughts on pulling power from OBD?
So we've probably done, I don't know, a couple hundred vehicles easily in the last few years with the iRoad OBD II cable. I never had any issue with the iRoad OBD II cable. The only issue I've ever had with an iRoad OBD II cable was I had like 2 BMWs where when you turn the vehicle off, it would go into driving mode, and when you turn the vehicle on, it would go into parking mode. So, I mean,
It's backwards.
I know, yeah, it was like some, it was a vehicle made directly in Germany. So obviously it was just, for some weird reason, wasn't being properly supported. But I haven't seen anything where codes are thrown or anything like that. Now, when I read on the forums, I know there was a client in Richmond, BC, who posted on the forums saying that he had a ThinkWare cable, and it was causing a whole bunch of issues with his Honda vehicle. And we were actually trying to find out why ThinkWare has, I think it's 4 pins on their OBD2 cable, and wondering, like, what are they doing? Are they integrating with CAN bus or anything like that? And I can tell you right now from my experience in talking to that customer, we told him you should buy an iRoad one, and he did. And the iRoad one, he said, works 100% fine. He had no issues. So I'm not sure what iRoad's doing different as compared to ThinkWare's manufacturer, but I do know that ThinkWare has like 4 pins on the bottom and iRoad only has 2. And iRoad's only integrating in pin 4 and pin 16. And pin 4 is ground and pin 16 is constant power on the vehicle. So typically, if we're going to the backside of a OBD2 cable when we do installation, pin 4 is ground, pin 16 is constant power, and a lot of times we will hook up to that for a dash cam hardwire. So knowing that it's probing that, it should be safe, and we haven't seen any issues. Now, a lot of the other products on the market, these other companies, which I don't even really know by name, some of them have like all 16 pins populated. I don't know what they're doing, and that might be part of the problem. And maybe that's where iRoad's been smart, is that they only have pin 4 and pin 16, and that is a safe bet.
I'm sure there's other stuff that we could talk about as well. If people have questions for you, or they want to like watch your videos or something, how can they learn more about you, check you out, ask questions, etc.?
Yeah, check us out on Safe Drive Solutions, Dashcam Specialists on YouTube. And we're pretty active on answering it. Or if you're on Reddit, we're also pretty active on Reddit. Feel free to look us up or tag us on there. We'd be happy to help you out.
And by the way, you guys, if you've noticed the camera suddenly like switches weird at different camera angles, our phones and GoPros keep overheating. One of it has actually died.
Yes, a GoPro is not good to be used as a dash camera. The Viofo has worked the whole time. No problems with the A229 Pro, but all GoPros and the phone have all shut off while making this video at least once.
At one point, I was actually trying to like pull out the battery here to let the dash cam breathe and cool off a little bit. I actually wound up pulling off the side of the battery cover.
Actually, that was a good end note, probably. Another one shut off.
Another one shut off. That one just shut off. We're back here on the phone, but like, yeah.
That's recording.
Yeah, this one. So we're up here now. So it's the whole thing. Yeah. Dash cam's still up and running the whole time it's been recording. But we're not trying to say like dash cams are amazing, other ones stink, but like this is just a thing that we notice while we're using and testing and like shooting videos here for you guys. Is like, yeah, phones overheat. People talk about using phones or GoPros as like dash cams, and we're like, have you tried it? It's not great in the heat, especially.
Everything has a purpose, and there's a reason why a dash camera is meant to run in the vehicle and not a GoPro.
Yeah. Hope they can get this battery out. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Check him out too. We'll see you later. Bye.